Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Can you hear me? Yes, okay, great.
Yeah.
Yes, great. So I love the series, as I was telling you backstage.
Thank you.
I don't think it's a spoiler if you've only seen the first episode to say that your character wakes up.
Eventually, yeah.
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 Just as cranky, just as manipulative, maybe more so.
Yeah, it's just the brain's being cleaned out, so ready to start for a new onslaught.
So let me start with the obvious question I know a lot of people have asked you. Jesse Armstrong, who created this, wrote a screenplay years ago about the Murdoch family.
Yeah.
And then it evolved and sort of morphed into Succession.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of Murdoch stuff in the character, I think, as it's written. Did you have any real-life models that you...
No, not really. I just I took it from the page. I mean, I thought it was a very classical story. You know, it's a family story. It's a family saga. So there's a lot of kind of Shakespearean influence. You know, sort of elements of King Lear. You know, except King Lear is. He's giving away his empire, whereas Logan Roy is taking it all back. And I just thought that was what really intrigued me about it. And also, it's incredibly funny.
It is. It's surprisingly funny for such a series about such a soulless family.
Yeah, and it's like so many families, you know. I mean, there's a kind of almost an epidemic of soullessness that goes on at the moment. But I think there's also something more. What's interesting about long-form television, which is much more actor-friendly than anything else, than a play, than a film, because your character develops, so surprises and secrets and mysteries are constantly being revealed. So it's never cut and dry. You see an aspect and you go, oh, that character is like that. And then you realize by the 7th episode that perhaps he isn't quite like that. That's what he appears to be. So there's a lot of and especially in the dynamic between the children who are, you know, they're cursed by their entitlement in a way, because they haven't come. And the difference between Murdoch and Logan Roy is completely autodidact, and he had no fortune. He did it all himself. He actually started from nothing, and unlike Murdoch, who inherited something. So it's that immediately makes it a kind of a different premise.
Well, we find out in that lunch scene that Logan was born in Dundee, Scotland, where you were born.
Yeah, well, that was a surprise to me. That was a huge surprise. When I got the script first, I suggested I play it Scots. I thought, well, you know, I'd be interested to play the Scots. And they said, oh, no, we don't want it Scots. He's got to be American. He's got to be American. I said, okay. You know, they say he might have come to America when he was a little boy, but he's got to be American. So, and then Peter Friedman, when we were doing the 9th episode, he said, you know, I did an ADR on the film, the first episode, and we've changed your birthplace. And I said, what? He said, yeah, we've changed your birthplace, because originally I was born in Quebec, Canada. And I said, oh, so where am I born then? And he said, oh, let me check. And he got his phone and he looked through. He said, oh, yeah, here it is. Dundee, Scotland. And I went, that's weird, that's where I'm from. Because Dundonians are very happy about that.
So what else can you tell us about the backstory of this character? We find out a little bit more as we go along through this series, and we meet his ex-wife, for example, one of his ex-wives, the mother of the children. But did you create a whole backstory for him that we don't see in this show?
Yeah, I think there are elements. I mean, I think Jesse does that anyway, and it really comes from the work that the actors do. You know, the actors contribute, in a way, a sort of essence to what the storytellers then pick up and develop. So there's elements that I think he's very much relates to the actors in that way. And of course, but it is a written show, so the writers then take it on their own journey. And it's very exciting in that way, because it's full of mystery, so you never quite know where you are, and constantly you're being full of little surprises that the characters go in a different direction. You say, "Oh, I see. It's like that. It's not like that." It's like there was one time when I said to Jesse in the scene, and well, you didn't see it, but there's a scene in Seven where we have it's a very funny scene where Griffith Dunn plays this psychoanalyst who kind of is in Logan thinks it's a good PR if he goes and has psychotherapy, and it's not very successful. So he goes, and he does actually say in the psychotherapy session how important, how much he loves his family and how important his family is. And I was going, well, is that true? Is it true? And I said to Jesse, I said, how true is that? He said, it's totally true. It's absolutely true. And of course, it was like a big, of course it's true. And it's the actual, in Logan, it's the sort of tragic dilemma that he does actually love those horrible children. He really does love them, but he can't do anything with them, because and they don't understand the nature of the business. They don't understand the nature. He keeps talking about the game. He plays the game to the limit, but they don't get it because they well, you know what happens. You see with how Kendall becomes, completely self-destructive. So it's just very true. There's so many truisms in it.
How self-aware is he? Does he realize how responsible he is for messing up those kids?
Totally. I think he is, but there's nothing he can do about it. I mean, I always just look to my own kids and go, I'm not particularly a wonderful father. They have missed out on a lot, but they've got their own lives. They've taken off. I'm not one of these controlling fathers. I'm sort of catch as catch can, let it go. Sort of a lot of improvisation goes on, but I think that with Logan that he really he just doesn't know, because of course he is an abused child. That's what comes out in 7 when we see him. The family says, "Oh, Dad doesn't swim. Dad doesn't swim. He doesn't swim." And at the end of the episode, I go for a swim, and it's revealed my back is covered in scars where he was beaten. And it was great because it was wonderful, for instance, working with Jamie Cromwell, because the complicated relationship there is there is this fierce loyalty between them, even though they can't stand one another. Mm-hmm. But Jamie being the elder brother and the brother who came to Canada much well before and what have you, it's so, and it's all there. It's just like fruit. It's like the tree that's endlessly giving fruit. Particularly for the actor, it's wonderful from the acting point of view.
So, how did you get that performance emotionally? How did you find him, and also physically? How did you get his voice, his posture? It's very specific.
Yeah, I don't know. It just came. I've sort of worked from the inside out, but I ain't no method actor by any stretch of the imagination. I learn my lines and try not to bump into the furniture, which is my basic principle of acting.
It works.
Well, I think that's all you have to do, really, is just learn your lines and not bump into the furniture. But no, it's really how the imagination works, and the imagination works like little. It works like little shots of electricity. You get something, you go, oh yeah, oh that, oh yeah, and that as well. So you begin to create a picture from sort of little shocks, little kind of little reveals of something, and then realizing the potential of something. And then again, as I say, the long form of television, you can maintain your mystery. I think it's the most important thing about Logan is that he's quite mysterious. He doesn't know himself, so he's really mysterious, Yeah. But I think that's the thing that sort of propels Logan is his sense of mystery.
What else propels him? Is it all about power for him?
It's about survival, actually. And it's survival at a certain price that he realized he had to pay. In order to keep up with the game, he had to win the game. And I think this is the problem. I'm fascinated, for example, by Andrew Carnegie, who who is really the father of American capitalism. And Carnegie was someone who believed in giving everything away, but at the same time, he was a bit of a hypocrite because, he got hoisted by his own petard. In the end, he died a very unhappy man because his armaments and his steel contributed greatly to the wars of the early part of the 20th century. And he realized that. So there was this little boy from Dunfermline in Scotland being brought up in Pittsburgh, choosing between two parents. His father was a bit of a dreamer, but his mother was the person who opened the window and sold things out the window of the house. So you got this sense of what survival is and the nature of survival and how survival kind of can twist you in certain areas, in certain directions. And I think Logan or anybody, because there is, I don't want to go on about the kind of political message of the play, but there is the film, the series, but there is a sort of very strong political motive at work.
Mm-hmm. Go on about that a little bit. Go ahead.
Well, I think that Jesse comes from, he comes from really sort of the satirical tradition of really looking at how the corridors of power work.
He worked with Armando
Iannucci.
Armando,
I think, Armando Iannucci is a great influence, a really great influence, because Armando really rewrote the book in a way, and Jesse also was working with Armando, so he's also rewritten some of the book as well, and they've done it together. So and it's that whole look at the sort of, and especially if you lived in the UK during the whole of the hubris of Tony Blair, it immediately becomes incredibly comic and incredibly stupid and incredibly silly. And therefore, it's good drama. It really creates very good drama. And that's what Armando picked up on, and that's what also Jesse clearly picked up on. So when he wanted to tell his story about Murdoch, he wrote a piece about Murdoch, but it's sort of, it transmogrified into something else. It kind of grew into something else because of the organic nature of it. It's not locked in something. It's endlessly moving on. And that's what makes the series, I think, really exciting, because you never know what's going to happen next. Mm-hmm. There is an element of surprise in it constantly. And
it now lands, speaking of dynasties, in the age of the Trumps.
Oh, well, we don't want to talk about that.
Okay, you don't have to talk about that.
I mean, that's just purely silly, isn't it? I mean, it's such bad drama.
It is. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, it could at least be good drama. It is bad drama.
No, it's terrible drama. It's terrible because you go, it's like working, it's like when you work with a particularly bad actor on a stage and you look at the audience and say, you believe this shit? You really believe this? Oh, come on, give me a break. You don't believe this, do you? I mean, it's, it's just, it's ludicrous. And of course, it's rather sweet because it is about the American sensibility and the gullibility of the American sensibility. There is it's that kind of mixture of enthusiasm and gullibleness that creates Donald Trump.
Right. So let's talk a little bit more about the comedy in here, because it is very funny. And also looking at the cast and you in particular, it's like a masterclass in reaction shots. A lot of it is in your face. And
it's all in the reaction. It is.
For instance, the sourdough starter scene.
Oh, I love the sourdough starter scene. Well, you see, what is great about the sourdough starter scene is that he doesn't understand what it is, but he's actually interested in it. Right. He's actually caught by it and says, it's quite, because it's his son. And it's his kind of wayward, kind of idiot son who comes up with this idea of the sourdough. And it's much more effective to him. He's much more impressed by that than he is by the Patek watch, which he's crawling, would-be son-in-law is passing off, and he's not that. And that's the great thing about Logan, which is really interesting. He's not materialistic. He doesn't really care about any of that stuff. He just, and of course anymore. Yeah. He's beyond all that. He's kind of, there's a sort of etiolated part of him. He's quite etiolated. But the sourdough, I love the sourdough. And I love the bemusement of it. The fact that it's just such a stroke of genius for him to bring a sourdough starter to his father. But then again, poor guy, what else could he bring him?
The man who has everything. Think of that next time when you're looking for a gift for someone who has everything. Sourdough starter.
Sourdough starter.
Okay,
Yeah.
We have some questions from all of you. This is sort of related. Will McKinley wants to know, what's more important to Logan, Waystar as a corporation or Waystar as a family-run business?
I think it's a hard one, but I do believe that he's hoisted by his own petard on this one. I do think secretly he believes it's a family-run business. But he's also drawn, because of the survival mechanism, he has to be drawn by the notion of it being a corporation. But it's not, if he has a heart, and we've yet to discover that, but if he has a heart, his heart is really much more in that direction, the family.
One of the other enigmatic things is his relationship with his current wife. We don't see much about her.
No.
We wonder what she's up to just because everybody's up to something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she was very, she was very patient because she kept, and I just said, wait till series 2. Just wait till series 2. All hell will break loose. And she did. She has done. She's kind of held her counsel on it. But it was tough because you think, but then she is great as the mystery woman.
Yes.
It's a great sort of, that Middle Eastern woman. You think, what is that relationship about? And it's.
Now, do you know what that's about? Have you been
No,
told
not
by
yet.
the writers?
I suspect that she protests great love for him, and I think that's true. But also, she's in the business of surviving. Because of her background and what she's been through, and that will all be revealed next time, and her son and all that, and the fact that he set up the son to work in the family, and all the other families said, "Well, what's going on here?" Sort of the surprise element. So I think that she's like the little silver penny in the cookie jar, that will come out in the next series.
The other mysterious relationship is Greg, the great nephew.
Yeah.
And why does Logan not sort of dismiss him, which is what I would expected him to do?
Because I think he likes the idiot savant. I think he has great compassion for the idiot savant. I think that also, it's his, and he likes fucking with them because he's because of his brother and his relationship with his brother. So he likes sort of fucking with Greg. But he's also, I think, actually really rather fond of Greg. He can see Greg's value. And, Greg is, he really is Candide. It's a wonderful character. I love Greg, and I love the way he does it. I just think he breaks my heart the way he does it, because he's such a victim so much of the time. And but I do think that Logan actually genuinely likes him. Genuinely actually kind of acknowledges him in a way. Because he does actually say to him in episode 8, when the terrible party is being set up, and he just asks him to look out for Kendall. He says, he can't ask anybody else. He can't ask his would-be son-in-law, and he certainly can't ask Kieran. But he does ask, he does ask Greg, and I think so. There's a sort of, and also he recognizes that Greg also is a survivor. He's someone who's surviving, going through that whole thing of being sick through the, with the kids and all that, and that kind of disastrous sort of beginning to his life at Waystar, and also the fact that he doesn't know if he's got a job or he has got a job, and when he gets paid, he's so surprised he gets actually paid. I think Logan appreciates Greg's sweetness.
Now, in the first episode, at least, I just thought he was a bonehead, so I would have dismissed him immediately. And that's maybe why I'm not a mega millionaire.
I think it's easy to assume that he's a bonehead, because he does some very boneheaded things. Right. But it's his very boneheadedness that kind of Logan kind of likes. He likes, there's a sort of desperate forwardness that he has. That ridiculous scene, because he's so tall. Oh, God, he's tall. Everybody thought I was sitting down in the elevator, but I wasn't. My head is way at the bottom of the frame, and he's kind of there like this. So it's a brilliant comic. The concept of that scene is brilliantly comic, and and he is there is something dear about him. You can't get round it. But also he's irritating too. He's irritating.
Right, but Logan saw that in him, and nobody else really did, which is a clue.
Because
is a clue
everybody
to
is
his
so
character, I think.
self-obsessed.
Yeah.
With I mean, that's one of the things about the entitlement. They can't see further than their own entitlement. They can't see further than their own sort of what they're inheriting. You know, they don't. He says it in 8. He says, you don't understand the game. You don't understand the nature of the game of business. You know, why he operates in that way. And the kids don't get it. They take it far too seriously.
Is there one of those kids who's more like Logan than the others?
Shiv.
In what way?
She's just cannier. She's a bit of a coward. She's trying to cover herself up. She's trying to have her cake and eat it. But she's also, in a healthy way, kind of going off on her own limb. You know, trying to sort of find her own person. And of course, she's the girl. She's the daughter, and she's, you know, by vent of that, she's the favorite child, I think. So I think, and also he sees a lot of, and her stubbornness is very like her dad's stubbornness as well, you know. And she's, you know, she gives as good as she gets. I mean, there's a wonderful scene where she's always beating up Kieran. She's always beating up Roman. So there's a wonderful scene where she beats him up. She has him in a headlock. You know, it's very funny.
This is from Roman, presumably not the character in the show. When rehearsing and blocking the show, did you make a conscious choice to portray your powerful character subtly and without doing too much?
Trying to do, it's all in the reaction. I mean, when you got a cast like that, you don't have to act. You just stand and watch them and go, really? Wow. You know, I mean, it's what it's about. It's about reacting, and you can't go wrong. I mean, this is an impeccable cast. I mean, I haven't worked with such a extraordinary bunch of young actors who are just so on the money, you know, all the time. So it makes my job so much easier because I can be bemused by them. I can be charmed to a certain extent, but at the same time, I'm absolutely fascinated by their kind of idiocy. You know, the fact that they are a group of idiots. You know, and why they choose to be idiots. It's you know, and it's also, and at the same time, Logan knows it's his fault. Mm-hmm. You know, he thinks I've raised idiots. How did I raise idiots? But I think there's elements in all our lives of that with some of our children. You know. Mm-hmm. You know, we love them, but sometimes they are idiots.
Does he feel responsible for that?
Yeah, deep down. Yeah, of course he does. He's not going to own it. He's not going to admit to it. He's not going to. He's not going to. You know, he's not going to play that because there is no. He's not got sentiment in that way. So he's not. But he does it, and of course, as the fuck ups come thick and fast, he begins to realize that he is. You know, he's not. He's not. You know, he's. You know, he's part of it. You know, he is part of it.
You've worked with a lot of different directors on the show. There are about 4 or 5 different directors, and the pilot was directed by Adam McKay.
Yeah, great. He set the style. Adam,
that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, Adam very much set the style. Adam took the picture and he just did that. He took the picture and it was like that, and he did that, and it was very clever. I was very, very impressed by him. Very impressed. Did
he sort of set the way that you find that balance between comedy and drama?
Yeah, very much so, because he was a founder of the Upright Citizens Brigade in Chicago. Oh, he was also the head writer of SNL. Yeah. So there's a lot of, and I've always thought of myself as a comic actor. Nobody else does, but I'm alone in that kind of craziness of my own opinion, but so when I worked with Adam, I just thought, oh, this is right. I feel at home here because he's very sort of, that's his, improv, those comedies, that kind of thing. That's his kind of root in a way, and it's great. It's really great. Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of more questions here. Mike Murray wants to know, do people still ask you about being the first actor to play Hannibal Lecter?
Constantly.
In Manhunter.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. I mean, I can't ignore it. It would be stupid to ignore it. And it also was, I did that film in I think I made it in 85 and it came out in 86. And then it came out and it immediately went into escrow because Dina De Laurentiis went bust. So the film languished for a while. It got incredible reviews, but it had no theaters. It didn't play anywhere because he owed a lot of money. And so the film, he actually hated Manhunt. He hated it because it reminded him of his disaster of trying to start a studio in a hurricane zone in North Carolina, which was not a clever idea, really.
No.
And I think so when it came out, it was great, and then people had seen it and grew, and then it went to the UK. Jeremy, the producer of I forgot his last name. Jeremy Thomas, thank you. Jeremy Thomas brought the film to London, and it was a big success in London, and that was probably around about 1990. And then the next thing I knew, they were doing this film called The Silence of the Lambs, and I wasn't in it. But that's the way it is.
So we have time for one more question. What is Logan's redeeming feature? Do you have to find that in a character as an actor?
Well, I think his redeeming feature is that he is, in his way, honest. You know, in a way, he's corrupt, but he's honest. He's honestly corrupt, and he's corruptingly honest. And I think that's what's interesting about him. He knows where all the bodies are buried. He knows what his contribution is. He's not going to play it. He's not going to, he's not going to, there's never going to be any soul searching. But there is a sort of, there's, I always think of kids, you see. I always think of my characters as children. I always think, what are they like as children? Like Donald Trump is a perfect example, because he is this, he's not even a baby, he's a sort of fetus, really. He's a sort of giant fetus, and because he never actually quite came out of the womb,
I can see that.
And all the shit hit him in the womb, and I think he's been working that out for the last 74 years or whatever it is. And I think some characters do that, that you have this trauma of your life when you're young. Well, not everybody has it, and that trauma marks you one way or the other. And I think with Logan, whatever happened, we'll find out what it is probably in series 2 or series 3. There is a trauma that triggered him in a certain direction.
Well, I can't wait for series 2. This season is almost over. You're coming back soon to do that, so we have to go. But thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Caryn. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.